Hiya there folks, welcome to Boating on a Budget with me, the tight Yorkshireman.
And me, Dawn.
This week we're carrying on painting our boat, aren't we?
We are.
We set off on a mission a week or so ago to see if we, us two DIYers, could paint our narrowboat to the same sort of standard as a professional does.
Yes.
However, we are on the side of the canal. We are travelling around the inland waterways of Great Britain. And as we say, we are DIYers.
Yeah.
So we're probably not going to get quite to a professional finish, but we're going to see just how close we can get, aren't we? The boat's currently had its first sanding and it's been rust treated. To get to that stage took a fair bit of work, including doing a lot of this.
This had to come off.
We then had to do a lot of that.
These had to be taken out.
We had to do some more of that. It was finally time to get the paintbrush out and at least get some rust treatment on. We've now got a boat that's had that initial sanding and it's rust treated. This morning I've already took the windows out and Dawn's already done breakfast.
I have.
So we are ready to go. Today then we're going to try and get a couple of three more stages done. First one of those is to give all this side a sand over, just using the orbital sander this time with a 120 grit sandpaper on there. That's fairly fine. Because we've got the bulk of the sanding done already, we just need to now smooth it all over. Once we've got that smoothed over, we'll run a little bit of filler into some of the areas that just need a little bit of work, such as in that corner there, maybe odd bits round the windows and across this handrail. Once the filler's gone off, we can sand that smooth, and then hopefully we can get that first coat of primer on there. Once that first coat of primer's on there, that then really starts to highlight what issues we've got and if we need to then go back and add either more filler or more sanding. I think then first job for you is get these windows masked up inside all the way down, and for me to get my PPE on and get a bit of sanding.
Obby.
As I carry on sanding down there then, you're going to mask up this hatch on the inside, and then if I can get these doors off, Dawn's going to be sanding those over, because obviously there's lots of fairly intricate parts on these that need doing by hand, sort of around the hinges and around the edges and what have you. So you can have that fun job while I carry on sanding the main side of the boat.
Oh well, won't you just put your art and I'll be coming out.
As we mentioned in the last video where we started this project, it's difficult to film and edit it in such a way as to keep it interesting without repeated scenes of constant sanding, filling and yet more sanding, while still showing the steps and detail of exactly what's involved in a full repaint. Hopefully we've got the balance something like right, so as not to be boring and yet remain informative and interesting at the same time. In this area there are 4 holes from the pop rivets that held the number plate on. If I try to fill those holes without grinding a small area back around the holes to accept the filler, they will be difficult to fill and sand without leaving imperfections in the finished paintwork. Grinding the steel back and adding filler to the whole area means a perfectly flat finish can be achieved. Having sanded the entire length of the boat, and you've done them hatches, haven't you?
I have.
So that's all nicely sort of prepped and everything. It's now time to get a bit of filler on there. I think the idea is going to be we're going to get some filler into these areas that we know needs filling, the bigger chunks. Let that dry, sand it off, and then get those couple of coats of paint on. We can then have a look and see exactly which bits of the boat kind of need more filler or less filler. Once there's a couple of coats of paint on, we'll be able to pick up those defects and marks.
Right.
On this package that came with the filler, there's a little guide. It shows 17 centimetres long in 1 centimetre increments. I need to put 17 centimetres of filler to 1 centimetre of hardener and then mix it together with the spatula. Let's see how well this goes. "17 centimetres. "1 centimetre.
What's your playtime with that then?
Probably got only 3 or 4 minutes before it starts to start hardening.
All right, okay.
And once it starts hardening, it then becomes basically unworkable. So in effect, I need to get it on sharpish.
Right.
It's now mixed, so you can see it's a consistent colour. We've got rid of the pink hardener and the white filler. So away we go. What I now don't want to do is, now I've got it on there, I don't want to be working it too much. Otherwise, as it starts to dry, you drag it around and it doesn't stick properly. He says all this. It's years since I've done any proper body filling on my old banger cars. But that's what I remember, and that's the research that I've done.
Right.
So that's mix number 1 done. I'll do another mix, get into these holes where the number plate was, get that smoothed in. Also need to do some down there and some around a couple of the windows. It's fair to say then, my patience has been tested to its limit, because you need to make sure that the filler's nice and dry and set before you start sanding it, otherwise it just pulls it off in chunks. But I want to get on, So I've left it the good half hour, 40 minutes, so longer than the actual recommendations. It should now be set, ready to have a bash at with the sander. And I've just got a very fine 120 grit paper on there, and I'm just going to feather over it, not rubbing in too hard, just feathering it just to get it nice and smooth. I do have a bit of a lump there, probably because I'm not a professional when it comes to filling, so we'll break that off. What obviously needs to happen is we need to get a uniform colouring effect there, because as we start sanding, it takes the top surface off and changes the colour ever so slightly. So while ever there's different shades in there, that means that we've got different textures. So just keep going nice and slowly until we get all the same shade. And I can now see I'm getting back towards some metal, so I think what that in effect is going to need now is just another thin skim of filler over the top, rather than trying to sand any more off, because I'm back as far as I can go. So I'll go over and do all these other areas, and then we'll mix up a little bit more filler. This section's all feathered in nicely, but I can feel there, and I can even see it probably picking up on camera, there's a little ridge there. So again, that's a spot that's just going to need that fraction more filler. In total then, I think there's 6 or 7 areas down the boat that I've had to put filler in. I've got all those sanded back now, and like we said, there's just odd little bits, so it now just needs a little bit of filler, just feathering in, just for that final finish. So if I get one last batch mixed up, and hopefully that'll be the end of the filler in today. I am partly now starting to get a little bit time conscious, because it is sort of cracking on in the day. And as well as getting this filler in, letting it dry, sanding it off, we then also need to get a coat of primer on tonight. One of the joys of not being in a nice covered dry dock that's heated, obviously I don't want to leave any of the bare metal overnight, otherwise that's just asking for rust, and then we're back to square one. So it's not a case of rushing, it's just a case of getting on with it. So as you can see, there's a lot of sanding and filling involved. But preparation is the key to a good finish. Every lump and bump that's left behind at this stage will be visible when the painting is completed. That means we can't cut any corners, or the overall finish will be far from perfect. The need for good preparation made us change our plans at this point. As I've already mentioned, time was getting on, so rather than rush to get a coat of primer on the boat, we decided to use the Aquasteel rust treatment again. Covering the side of the boat with Aquasteel would seal and protect it until we had another spare day to continue the project. Hopefully you've enjoyed this second part of our mission to paint Rosalie to the same sort of standard that a professional painter would achieve. Join us next time where we get some primer on the boat and reveal just how much more preparation will be needed.